Hello, and welcome to the State of New Mexico Community Advocacy Webinar Training. I'm Christine Hackus, currently serving in the role of Deputy State Ombudsman. We're excited to have you, our state's first responders, partner with our program. We are appreciative of your time as you play a critical role in the observe and report community advocacy role. Your working expertise, in combination with the Ombudsman Regional Coordinator expertise, will better the lives of our long-term care communities for years to come. During the course of your day, you may have come across situations or concerns in long-term care facilities you would like to report, but are unsure who to report your concerns to. We believe this training will bridge that gap. Together, we'll work to ensure our state's long-term care residents receive the highest standards in quality of care, respect, and preserve dignity they so justly deserve. I'd like to introduce you all to Ombudsman Regional Coordinator for the Metro area and Community Advocacy Trainer, Phyllis Gilmore. Phyllis has an extensive background in long-term care, and I know you'll have fun learning from her. Let's get started. Phyllis?
Thank you, Christine. Welcome, everyone, to our Resident-Centered Advocacy Service Training. Part 1, who we are. The Long-Term Care Ombudsman Program is a division of the New Mexico Aging and Long-Term Care Service Department. We provide independent oversight and person-centered advocacy service to residents in our long-term care facilities. Every state in the country is federally mandated to have an ombudsman program. In New Mexico, we advocate for residents in nursing homes and assisted living facilities. We work with all parties involved to resolve problems and improve the quality of life and quality of care for our residents. Quick facts: the ombudsmen are not mandatory reporters. We only elevate if given consent by the resident. We are not regulators. We do have fines, but that is limited in case we run into obstruction by a facility, which includes records, facility information, resident information. We also can impose fines in regards to retaliation. We will discuss that later on in our training. What is the role of an ombudsman? The word ombudsman is truly a mouthful. When I go into facilities and introduce myself, I normally say, "Hi, I'm Phyllis, and I'm an ombudsman." And the residents look at me, "Ombuzz what? Ombuzz who?" So I kind of just say, "A resident advocate," and the light bulb goes off. So the word ombudsman means the carrier of the message. We find out what the resident wishes and concerns are. We advocate on the behalf of the resident. An ombudsman investigates and resolves complaints and works towards empowering the resident. An ombudsman is independent of the long-term care facility. Our services are free and confidential. A little history about the Ombudsman program. It dates back in the 60s and 70s when President Nixon formulated a directive for nursing homes that initiated the Ombudsman program on a federal level. This is also known as the Older American Act. The OAA established a mandate for improving quality of care in the nursing homes and the mechanism for complaint resolution. In the late 70s, Congress strengthened our ability to include all long-term care facilities. We are federally and state mandated. Federal mandates is that each state must have an ombudsman program. The state mandates what our authority is. Here in New Mexico, we have afforded the Ombudsman program to have a strong authority to protect our vulnerable residents. We are a health oversight agency, and we work in conjunction with other health oversight agencies as well. We also have the honor to participate in joint protocol. That is when Adult Protective Services, Department of Health, and Department of Health, Human Services, we all discuss in confidence. We share information between the parties to be able to jointly investigate and make sure that our residents have the proper care that they deserve. In most states, they don't have a joint protocol because of the HIPAA regulations that they cannot speak with each other. So New Mexico is very fortunate to have this process. The ombudsmen, we are able to go into a facility 24/7, 365 days of year. Other states' entities must be dispatched before entering a facility. We can go at any time for any reason. We work with other entities using our respective mandates to ensure resident safety. We're also authorized to do overt and undercover investigation. So in summary, the scope of the Ombudsman program, federal and state mandated, part of the Older American Act, and we also have the New Mexico Long-Term Care Ombudsman Act. We're a health oversight agency. We have the authority, once again, to conduct investigation, access medical records, and also able to participate and give civil monetary penalties if necessary. We also do system advocacy, community education and outreach, facility in-service training, and legislative advocacy. How we advocate for our residents. We empower the residents to speak on their own behalf so they can regain their control over their own lives. We proceed at a pace and in a direction a resident feels comfortable with. We take experiences and concerns seriously. We are alert to suggest ways in which residents can exercise their choice. We encourage residents to express their preferences, and we also assist staff and residents to listen to each other. We help staff to think in terms how we can instead of we can't because. Part 2, who you are as a community advocate. Take it away, Christine.
Thank you. So who you are as a community advocate. What is a community advocate anyway? A community advocate is someone who brings issues of concern or abuse to the attention of the regional or state ombudsman or the regional coordinator. What will your mission be? Your duties? Well, that is to observe and report. Your mission is to gather information during visits to long-term care centers and report out. You do not unilaterally have to solve the issues a resident brings to your attention. If you report those to us, we are happy to take over, speak with the resident, and work to resolve those issues on behalf of the resident in their favor. What are your protocols? And when you identify the key information, or harm happening, where do you report it? You record the information or harm and send it to your regional coordinator or state ombudsman. We'll go over those protocols here momentarily. Your basic questions to ask when you're taking notes. I'm sure that you all are very well aware of this. It is the who, what, where, and when. So when you're gathering information, we're going to ask you to gather the name of the resident, the nature and extent of harm, and any physical signs of abuse or neglect, such as bruising, where it occurred, the name and location of the facility. If you have the resident's room number, that would be fantastic, but absolutely not necessary. And when it happened, the time and date of the incident, when it occurred, or when you first became aware of the incident. How to report. Back to those protocols. So scenario, I saw something, was notified of harm or abuse or neglect. Now what? You'll follow these 3 steps. Number 1, get the name of the resident and the name of the facility. Step 2, get the details of what you saw or what you are describing as harm, abuse, or neglect. And step 3, contact your regional coordinator. Report all concerns as soon as possible to the Ombudsman hotline or your regional coordinator. That number is 24/7, 365 days out of the year, as Phyllis described. And that number is 1-866-451-2901. Again, that is 866-451-2901. I reported something. Now what happens? If the allegation of abuse is confirmed and the perpetrator is a nurse, the charge will be reported to the state nurse registry. There could also be criminal charges or financial investigations into the facility. This registry is used by nursing homes to prevent abusive aides from working with the elderly. Nursing homes are required to check the registry before hiring. Phyllis?
Thank you, Chris. Part 3, residents' wants, choices, and decisions. The basis. Adults have the right to make their own decision and to be assumed to have capacity to do so unless shown otherwise. A person should be offered all reasonable support and assistance in making and following through on their decision before others step in to make a decision for them. Adults have the right to make decisions that others feel are unwise or disagree with. The right to have a different tolerance for the risks associated with a decision, and the right to fail after making a decision. When others are involved in decision making, the person's basic rights and freedoms must be represented by attempting to meet their preference. There are many misconceptions in regards to going in a nursing home. Many individuals have the misconception that they give up their rights, their wishes, their daily schedule. They feel like that they give up all the enjoyment as being a private citizen upon entering a long-term care facility. And facilities perpetuate that myth because it is more convenient for them to have the masses conform to a uniform schedule of care than provide individualized care. People do not lose the rights they enjoy as private citizens when they enter a facility. In fact, they gain additional rights, and we will be talking about those rights shortly. Part of your rights in a long-term care facility, they must maintain the quality of life. A facility must care for its residents in such a manner and in such an environment as will promote maintenance or enhancement of the quality of life of each resident. Quality of care. Each resident must receive and the facility must provide the necessary care and services to attain or maintain the highest practicable physical, mental, and psychosocial well-being in accordance with the comprehensive assessment and plan of care. Resident rights. Long-term care resident has special rights in addition to the rights we all have when living independently in the community. She has the right to get that little sugar on her cheek. Sometimes we talk about bad decisions or not very popular decisions. As you see on our side, what kind of decision that a resident can make? They can refuse their medication. If they were long-term smokers and that enhances their quality of life, they may want to continue to smoke. And if they're a type of resident that was always on the go, they want to know where to go and how am I going to get there. So the residents have the right to freedom. The residents have the right to be free from restraints. The resident has the right to be free from physical, emotional, and verbal abuse. The resident has the right to be free from financial exploitation. The resident has the right to participate in activities. The resident has the right to participate in a residents association. And you also may hear the term resident council. The resident has the right to appeal any unjustified room changes, and the resident has the right to come and go from the facility. The resident has the right to voice complaints and have them promptly resolved. Hypothetically, if you're going into a facility and you're doing your whatever you do, and a resident is at a table sitting in their wheelchair, and you notice that resident may be trying to get up and down and they can't. That resident is actually being restrained. If you see it, you say it. We are all aware about physical, emotional, and verbal abuse. If you see it, say it. Fairness. The resident has the right to be treated with respect. The resident has the right to be free from discrimination. The resident has the right to receive information about all services and their costs. Resident has the right to receive written description of their legal rights and responsibilities. The resident has the right to live in a safe and clean environment. The resident has the right to be served appetizing and nutritious meals. The resident has the right to be given help when they need. For example, if you're out at a facility during mealtime, observe if the residents are enjoying their meal. Observe if the meal looks appetizing. Is it something that you would eat? Observe if the facility is clean. Observe if the facility is safe in regards to spills or things of that nature. If you see it, say it. Choice. The resident has choice. The resident has the right to decide to accept or refuse medical treatment. The resident has the right to understand and participate in their plan of care. The resident has the right to choose their doctors, their pharmacists, or other healthcare professionals. The resident has the right to be given information about their medical condition and their health. The residents have the right to be given information about their eligibility for benefits, and they also have the right to manage their own finances. Privacy. Resident has the right to keep and use their personal belongings without loss or damage. The resident has the right to receive private and confidential medical care and records and have their records remain confidential. The resident has the right to have privacy in their room. They have the right to be on the phone in private, and they also have the right to have their mail unopened. Part 4, we're going to talk about abuse and neglect and your roles as a community advocate. Reporting abuse and neglect. It is a violation of the state and federal law for any person, including facility staff, facility members, guardians, volunteers, and visitors, to abuse or neglect a resident. So let's talk about abuse. Abuse is any action that is intentionally harms or injures another person. Abuse can also mean the other party is seeking control over the other. Some of the methods is psychological, emotional, physically, and verbally. Some of the examples of abuse: physical abuse, hitting, pinching, shoving, forcing, scratching. Psychological or emotional abuse: berating, ignoring, ridiculing, cursing a resident, threats of punishment. Sexual abuse: improper touching or having any inappropriate sexual acts. The result of this abuse can be devastating. You find things of incontinence, dehydration, pressure sores, fear, depression. There are many, many results of abuse. A few examples of abuse: physical abuse, hitting, pinching, shoving, force feeding, scratching, slapping, or spitting. Psychological or emotional abuse, some examples: berating, ignoring, ridiculing, cursing, threats of punishment. Example of sexual abuse: improper touching or to perform a sexual act. Substandard care, which often results in one or more of the following conditions: immobilization, incontinence, dehydration, pressure sores, fear, depression. Rough handling during care, giving medication, and moving a resident. Neglect: the failure to care for a person in a manner which would avoid harm and pain. The failure to react to a situation which may be harmful. The methods of neglect can be carelessness, indifference, unwillingness, and forgetfulness. This is an example of neglect. We have this caring nursing aide or caregiver who is poorly trained, may not know how to provide proper care. This caregiver, this CNA, is wonderful. She's very nice, she's sweet, but she has not been trained to give proper care. The results of this inappropriate training or the lack of training will result in incorrect body positioning, which leads to limb contractions and skin breakdown, lack of toileting or changing of disposable brief, which cause incontinence and will result in residents sitting in urine and feces, increased falls and agitation, indignity and skin breakdown. Lack of assistance with eating or drinking, which leads to malnutrition and dehydration. The lack of assisting with walking, which can lead to the lack of mobility. The lack of bathing, which leads to indignity and poor hygiene. The lack of assistance with participating in activities of interest, which leads to withdrawal and isolation. And ignoring call bells or cry for help. These are the results of just a wonderful person not being trained properly. Final part, tips for communication. The types of communication: verbal communication, the voice, tone, and language used, content of the message. Nonverbal communication, sending of messages without the use of words. Examples: sighs, laughter, silence, maybe facial expressions of grimacing in pain. I have a example of a resident where she definitely exercised verbal communication. She was in a memory care unit, and I went to visit her and was asking how things was going. And she said, "Hi, dear, the purple monkey beat me up last night." And I thought, the purple monkey. And I said, can I go ask somebody about the purple monkey? She said, sure, dear, go and ask someone about the purple monkey. So long story short, I discussed with the facility what the resident had said. And through my investigation, I found out that there was a CNA that wear purple scrubs, very hairy face, that was a little rough with the resident. So even though she was able to verbally communicate, in her mind, it was a purple monkey. So communication, be it verbal, nonverbal, facial expression, is all very valid. Everything is valid when it comes down to communicating with a resident. All behaviors is communicating something. Usually a resident need is not being met. Their desire is unfulfilled. Attempt to alter what's happening is not happening. So whose problem is it? It's not the residents. Who has the potential to change? The facility with advocacy and assistance. So the facilities usually or sometimes label residents, and maybe sometimes we do it ourselves in our day-to-day communication with others. Different labels that I've known facilities to use is the resident is bossy, a drama queen, argumentative, manipulative, a liar, stubborn, maybe an airhead. Sometimes they make assumptions. The resident is never happy. They think they just know everything. They just want attention. They hate their lives, doesn't care about anyone else, can't control their emotions, and they just love to argue. My thoughts about communicating with people, we need to reframe the way we think. So let's start with a bossy person. Maybe we should look at them as goal-oriented. A drama queen, which I have been accused of being myself, maybe I'm just expressive. Argumentative, analytical, manipulative. Let's say they have strong persuasive skills. A liar, great storytellers. Stubborn, maybe they adhere to their principles. Airhead, they're visionary and they're a dreamer. In addition to reframing your thoughts, I also want you to take into consideration the resident's cognitive impairment, disorganized thoughts and behaviors, personality changes, impaired social skills, disorientation, attention deficit, memory loss, impaired communication, expressive and receptive, sensory deficits, language, literacy, culture, grief, loss, end-of-life needs, pain, illness, delirium, their medication, history of substance use, past or present trauma, and family dynamics. This is the end of our training. I want to thank you from all of us at the New Mexico Long-Term Care Ombudsman Program and the Aging and Long-Term Service Department. I'm turning it back over to Chris. Thank you.
Thank you, Phyllis. Great job presenting the community advocacy training.
My
And thanks to
pleasure.
all of you for joining us today and becoming a community advocate partner. As emergency responders and medical transport service providers, your participation as a community advocate is invaluable. We look forward to receiving information and complaints of care you observe and report. As there are many layers to our Ombudsman Volunteer Program, please contact us at 866-451-2901 if you or anyone you know would like to become a certified volunteer ombudsman. Have a great day and be safe out there.